Part 1. The assignment Lieutenant Kate Rodriguez walked into the briefing room with heavy steps. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The room smelled like coffee and old electronics. She had been a soldier for 20 years, and she knew when something felt different about a mission. The holographic display flickered to life in front of her. Blue light filled the dark room. Colonel Williams stood next to it, his gray hair perfectly combed as always. Kate noticed he was trying not to smile, which made her suspicious right away. "What's the job, sir?" Kate asked. She kept her hands behind her back, standing straight like a proper soldier. Her fingers were rough from years of handling weapons and equipment. "Simple escort mission to the Altarian homeworld," Colonel Williams said. He touched the display, and a beautiful planet appeared in the air between them. It looked like a giant blue marble with silver clouds. "You'll have ceremonial duties. Think of it as representing Earth's military at its finest." Kate frowned. She had done escort missions before, but this felt strange. "So, it's just a parade thing? Stand around and look tough for the aliens?" The colonel's mouth twitched like he wanted to laugh. "Something like that, Rodriguez. Just be yourself, or whatever you think shows what humanity's best soldiers look like." Kate nodded once, sharp and quick. In her experience, when officers talked about ceremonies with aliens, they wanted to show off human military power. They wanted the aliens to see what Earth's warriors could do. That made sense to her. "When do I leave?" she asked. "Transport leaves in 4 hours. Pack light, but pack smart." Kate saluted and turned to leave. She walked through the corridors of the base. She thought about what equipment she would need. Her mind went through her checklist like it always did before a mission. Weapons, armor, medical supplies, communication gear. The armory was her favorite place on the base. It smelled like gun oil and metal polish. Sergeant Davis was cleaning rifles behind the counter. He looked up when Kate walked in. "Big mission, Lieutenant," he asked. "Alien ceremony thing. Need my regular gear." Kate walked past the fancy dress uniforms hanging on the wall. Those were for diplomats and politicians. She was a soldier, not a fashion model. She went straight to her personal equipment locker. Her Mark V combat suit hung there like an old friend. The armor was dark gray with black straps and silver buckles. It had saved her life more times than she could count. The ceramic plates were scratched and dented from battles on 3 different worlds. Some of the scratches came from alien claws. Others came from explosive shrapnel. Kate ran her fingers over the scorch marks on the chest plate. That one came from a plasma rifle on Proxima Beta. The alien who fired it was dead now, but the mark remained. Each scar on the armor told a story of survival. On the left shoulder, she had sewn patches for her fallen teammates. Miller, who died saving civilians. On Europa Jackson, who held a position alone so his squad could escape. Torres, who jumped on a grenade to protect wounded soldiers. Their names were embroidered in gold thread on black fabric. "This armor represents humanity just fine," Kate said to herself. She put on the heavy suit piece by piece. First the leg, armor, then the chest plate, then the arm guards. The weight felt comfortable and familiar. The helmet's display came to life, showing her vital signs and system status. Everything was working perfectly. Kate attached her rifle to the magnetic clamp on her back. She checked her sidearm and made sure her ammunition pouches were full. Her combat knife went into its sheath on her thigh. Medical supplies, communication equipment, and emergency rations filled the remaining pockets. As she walked to the transport bay, other personnel stared at her. Some whispered to each other and pointed. Kate heard fragments of their conversations. "Is she really wearing that? Doesn't she know what kind of mission this is? Someone should tell her." Kate ignored them all. She had learned long ago that soldiers talked too much and thought too little. If the colonel wanted her to represent humanity's military, then she would do exactly that. She was not some pretty decoration to stand around and smile. She was a warrior who had fought and bled for Earth. The transport ship was waiting with its engines already running. Kate climbed aboard and found a seat near the back. The other passengers were diplomats in expensive suits and military officers in dress uniforms with shiny buttons. They all looked at her like she was some kind of mistake. Kate closed her eyes and tried to rest during the long journey to Altarian space. She had no idea that she was flying toward the most important day of her life. Part 2. Cultural collision. Kate stepped off the transport ship and immediately knew she was in trouble. The Altarian palace stretched before her like something from a dream. It was made of what looked like carved crystal that caught the light from two suns hanging in a purple sky. The whole building seemed to glow from within, casting rainbow colors across the ground. Her heavy combat boots made loud clanking sounds on the polished marble floors. Each step echoed through the massive hallways like thunder. Kate felt clumsy and out of place, like a tank driving through a flower garden. The floors were so shiny she could see her reflection in them. Altarian beings floated past her more than walked. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked almost see-through. Their robes flowed behind them like water, made from fabric that seemed to change colors as they moved. When they saw Kate in her battle armor, their large silver eyes went wide with shock. They whispered to each other in voices that sounded like music. Kate tried not to stare, but she had never seen aliens like these before. They looked fragile, like they might break if someone spoke too loudly. Their movements were graceful and smooth, completely different from the rough soldiers Kate was used to working with. The hallway opened into a huge room with a ceiling so high Kate could barely see the top. Hundreds of Altarians in expensive robes sat in curved rows facing a golden altar. Everything sparkled with jewels and precious metals. It was the fanciest place Kate had ever seen. At the front of the room stood a young Altarian male wearing more gold than Kate thought was possible. His robes were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move on their own. A crown made of what looked like liquid light sat on his head. Kate figured this must be some kind of important leader. The alien prince saw her walking down the center aisle in full combat gear. His face went completely white. His mouth dropped open like he had seen a ghost. Kate heard gasps from the crowd around her. Some of the aliens actually put their hands over their eyes like they could not bear to look at her. Kate started to feel uncomfortable. This was not the kind of reaction she expected for a military ceremony. Usually aliens either respected human soldiers or feared them. These aliens looked horrified and embarrassed. Ambassador Hayes appeared beside her like magic. He was a small, nervous man who always looked worried about something. Right now, he looked like he might have a heart attack. His face was red and sweaty, and his fancy diplomatic uniform was wrinkled. Lieutenant Rodriguez, he whispered through teeth, clenched so tight Kate was surprised he could talk at all. Did no one explain what your actual role is here? Kate kept walking toward the altar, her rifle bouncing slightly on her back with each step. I'm here to represent Earth's military. Show these aliens what human soldiers look like. Hayes grabbed her armored elbow, trying to stop her. You are the bride. Kate stopped walking so suddenly that her boots skidded on the smooth floor. Her helmet display immediately showed that her heart rate had jumped to dangerous levels. The tactical computer started running stress protocols. The what now? She asked, her voice coming out as a croak. The alliance treaty between Earth and Altaria requires a marriage bond between our species. Hayes explained quickly, mopping sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. You were selected as Earth's representative to marry Prince Theron. This is a wedding ceremony, not a military demonstration. Kate felt like someone had hit her in the stomach with a sledgehammer. She looked around the room with new eyes. The fancy decorations, the formal seating, the altar covered in flowers that glowed with soft light. The aliens were not wearing military uniforms or diplomatic robes. They were wearing wedding clothes. Her tactical computer automatically started, mapping escape routes. 3 exits, 2 windows, 1 ventilation shaft, large enough for human passage. Her hand moved toward her sidearm without her thinking about it. 200 alien nobles stared at her in complete silence. Some looked shocked, others looked disgusted, and a few looked like they might start crying. Kate realized she was probably the first person in galactic history to show up to her own wedding wearing full battle armor and carrying enough weapons to level a city block. Prince Theron swayed on his feet like he might faint. His golden robes rustled as he trembled. Kate could see him trying to process the fact that this heavily armed human female was supposed to be his new wife. Nobody thought to mention this in the briefing? Kate asked Hayes, her voice getting dangerously quiet. It was classified information. Until you arrived, Hayes stammered. The treaty negotiations were very delicate. We could not risk any leaks. Kate looked at the prince, who was now being supported by two worried-looking advisors. She looked at the crowd of aliens whispering frantically to each other. She looked at Ambassador Hayes, who seemed ready to crawl under the nearest rock. So let me get this straight, Kate said slowly. I am supposed to marry an alien prince I have never met, in front of hundreds of witnesses, while wearing combat armor and carrying enough firepower to fight a small war. That is essentially correct, Hayes admitted. Kate's helmet display showed several new alerts. Our stress levels were approaching critical thresholds. The tactical computer was recommending immediate evacuation. Every instinct she had developed over 20 years of combat was screaming at her to get out of this situation as fast as possible. But Kate Rodriguez had never run from anything in her life. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and started walking toward the altar again. Well, she said, her boots clanking against the marble floor. This is going to be interesting. Part 3. Armor and Honor. Kate was still trying to process the whole wedding situation when the world exploded around her. The beautiful crystal windows that had been letting in purple sunlight suddenly burst inward in a shower of sparkling glass. The sound was deafening, like a thunderclap inside a cathedral. Her combat training kicked in before her brain could even register what was happening. 20 years of fighting had taught her body to react faster than her mind could think. Helmet display immediately lit up with red warning symbols as her armor's computer systems detected incoming threats. Black shapes dropped through the broken windows on ropes, moving fast and silent like deadly spiders. They wore dark armor that absorbed light, making them hard to see against the shadows. Kate counted 12 figures as her tactical display painted bright red target markers over each one. Kethmori separatists, Prince Theron screamed from somewhere. Behind her, his musical voice was high with panic and fear. Kate did not know who the Kethmori were, but it did not matter. Someone was attacking a wedding, which meant they were attacking innocent people. Her rifle was in her hands before she consciously decided to draw it. The magnetic clamp released with a soft click, and the familiar weight of her weapon felt reassuring in the chaos. The Altarian wedding guests started screaming. Their beautiful voices, which had sounded like music before, now sounded like breaking glass. They ran in all directions, their flowing robes billowing behind them as they tried to find somewhere to hide. But the palace had been built for beauty, not defense. It was nowhere safe to go. Energy bolts started flying through the air, leaving trails of blue fire. The attackers were using plasma weapons that could burn through metal. Kate saw one bolt hit a marble pillar and leave a smoking hole the size of her fist. "Get down," Kate shouted at the panicking aliens. Her voice boomed through her helmet's external speakers, cutting through the screaming. "Stay low and find cover." She did not wait to see if they listened. Kate was already moving, her heavy boots pounding against the polished floor. Each step left small cracks in the marble, but she did not care about property damage anymore. People were in danger. The first attacker landed near the altar where Prince Theron was trying to hide behind golden decorations. The alien prince looked tiny and helpless in his fancy robes. The assassin raised his weapon, aiming for the prince's head. Kate's rifle cracked twice. Both shots hit the attacker in the center of his chest, punching through his armor like it was made of paper. He dropped to the ground and did not move again. Kate had been shooting accurately for 2 decades, and some skills never got rusty. Her armor's tactical computer was feeding her information. It's faster than she could process it. Enemy positions, ammunition counts, threat assessments, escape routes. The display showed that all 12 attackers were focused on eliminating the wedding party. This was not random violence. This was a planned assassination meant to stop the alliance between humans and Arians. Kate grinned inside her helmet. The assassins had made one critical mistake in their planning. They had expected to find defenseless diplomats and scared aliens. Instead, they were facing a human combat veteran who had spent 20 years learning how to kill people who threatened her friends. "Big mistake," she muttered, moving toward the next group of attackers. 3 Kethmori had taken position near a side chapel, trying to flank around the main altar. Kate could see their plan on her tactical display. They wanted to come at Prince Theron from behind while their teammates kept everyone distracted from the front. Kate pulled a microgrenade from her belt. The small explosive was designed for breaching doors and creating temporary barriers. She set the timer for 3 seconds and rolled it toward the chapel entrance. The explosion brought down half the doorway in a shower of crystal and marble, trapping the 3 attackers inside. 2 more assassins were moving toward the prince from the other side. Kate could see them through her rifle scope, even though they were almost 400 meters away at the far end of the huge ceremony hall. At this distance, most soldiers would have trouble hitting anything smaller than a building. Kate was not most soldiers. She had been the best marksman in her unit for 15 years running. She settled into a stable shooting position, controlled her breathing, and squeezed the trigger twice. Both attackers dropped instantly, their plans permanently interrupted. The remaining Kethmori realized they were facing something they had not expected. Kate could see uncertainty in their movements as they tried to regroup. Their careful plan was falling apart because none of them had prepared to fight a human soldier in full combat armor. Kate moved through the palace like a force of nature. Her heavy boots crushed marble tiles and left deep prints in expensive carpets. She did not try to be quiet or careful. Instead, she moved with the confidence of someone who had survived dozens of battles by being better at violence than her enemies. When 2 attackers tried to use Altarian nobles as human shields, Kate shot the weapons out of their hands before they could hurt anyone. When another assassin attempted to plant explosives near the main support columns, Kate put 3 rounds through his helmet from across the room. One by one, the red markers on her display went dark. Each eliminated threat made the wedding guests a little safer. Kate had turned the elegant ceremony into a tactical battlefield, and she was winning decisively. The surviving Altarian nobles watched in complete amazement. They had never seen violence like this before. In their culture, conflicts were resolved through negotiation and careful diplomacy. But here was this human female, moving through their sacred space like a warrior goddess, systematically destroying anyone who threatened them. Within 10 minutes, it was over. Kate's display showed no active threats. The Kethmori separatists were either dead or had retreated through the windows they came from. The wedding hall looked like a war zone, with broken crystal, bullet holes, and scorch marks everywhere. Kate lowered her rifle and looked around at the shocked faces staring back at her. Prince Theron was still crouched behind the altar, his golden robes torn and dusty. Ambassador Hayes was hiding under a ceremonial table, his diplomatic training having failed to prepare him for actual combat. Threat neutralized, Kate announced through her external speakers. Wedding can continue? Part 4. Respect through strength. The silence that followed the gunfire was almost as loud as the battle itself. Kate's helmet display finally showed all green lights, meaning no more active threats in the area. She kept her rifle ready anyway, because 20 years of combat had taught her that the most dangerous moment was right after you thought the fight was over. Prince Theron slowly emerged from behind the golden altar, where he had been hiding. His ceremonial robes, which had looked perfect and spotless when Kate first saw him, were now torn and covered in dust from the marble debris. His hand shook as he brushed crystal fragments from his sleeves, but something had changed in his large, silver eyes. Before the attack, he had looked at Kate with horror and embarrassment, like she was some kind of terrible mistake. Now there was something different there, something that looked almost like wonder. "You saved us," he said in careful English, his musical voice much quieter than before. He was staring at the scattered bodies of the Kethmori assassins around. His wedding hall? You protected all of us. Kate ejected the spent magazine from her rifle with a practiced motion. The empty magazine clattered against the marble floor as she smoothly inserted a fresh one. The whole reload took less than 3 seconds, a motion she had practiced thousands of times until it became as natural as breathing. "That's what we do," she said simply. "We protect what matters." A tall Altarian in ornate armor approached them carefully. Unlike the flowing robes of the wedding guests, He wore what was obviously military gear, but compared to Kate's battle-scarred combat suit, his armor looked more like jewelry than protection. It was covered in decorative engravings and precious metals that would probably get him killed in a real fight. "I am Captain Veltar, commander of the Royal Guard," he said. Bowing deeply to Kate, his voice held a tone of respect that had not been there before. "In 40 cycles of service to the Crown, I have never witnessed such efficiency in combat." Kate looked at him and realized that this alien soldier was genuinely impressed. Before the attack, she had seen the way he looked. At her armor with disgust, like she was some kind of barbarian who did not understand proper protocol. Now he was staring at her like she was some kind of legend come to life. "Where I come from," Kate said, pulling off her helmet to reveal sweaty brown hair stuck to her forehead. "This is just Tuesday." Her green eyes were calm and steady as she looked around the destroyed wedding hall. To her, this had not been some heroic battle against impossible odds. It had just been another day at work. Another group of bad people who needed to be stopped before they could hurt innocent folks. Prince Theron stepped closer to her, his fear completely replaced by curiosity. He moved carefully, like someone approaching a dangerous but fascinating, wild animal. Kate noticed that he was not looking at her weapons anymore. He was looking at her face, trying to understand what kind of person could stay so calm after a firefight. "Your people," he said slowly, "do they all fight like this?" Kate considered the question seriously. She thought about the other soldiers she had served with over the years. Miller, who died holding a position against 50 enemies so civilians could evacuate. Jackson, who walked into a minefield to rescue wounded teammates. Torres, who jumped on a grenade to save his squad. "When we have to," Kate replied honestly. "Most humans never see combat. But when someone threatens our friends, our families, or innocent people, we do whatever it takes to stop them." She gestured toward the memorial patches on her left shoulder, each one representing a fallen comrade who had died protecting others. "Your enemy just learned why Earth chose me for this alliance," Kate continued. "I was not picked because I look good in a fancy dress, Your Highness. I was picked because I keep my people alive. And now that includes you." Prince Theron nodded slowly, and Kate could see understanding dawning in his alien features. For the first time since she had arrived on his world, he was really seeing her. Not as an embarrassing mistake or a diplomatic problem, but as exactly what she was, a professional warrior, whose job was protecting people who could not protect themselves. Captain Veltar was examining the tactical situation with the eye of an experienced soldier. He walked among the fallen attackers, noting their positions and equipment. Kate could see him reconstructing the battle in his mind, trying to understand how one human had defeated 12 trained assassins in less than 10 minutes. "The Kethmori are elite fighters," he said to Kate, with obvious respect. "They have been planning this attack for months. They knew our security protocols, our guard positions, our response times. They prepared for everything except. A human soldier in full combat gear," Kate finished for him. "Yes, your people fight differently than anyone in this galaxy. You do not retreat, you do not negotiate, you do not surrender. You simply eliminate the threat." Kate shrugged. "It's not complicated. Bad people want to hurt good people. Stop. The bad people. Everything else is just details." Prince Theron was quiet for a long moment, looking around at his ruined wedding hall. The beautiful crystal windows were shattered, the marble floors were cracked, and there were bullet holes in priceless artwork. But everyone who mattered was alive and safe. "Perhaps," he said thoughtfully, "our cultures have more to offer each other than we initially realized." Kate looked at this alien prince who had gone from horror to respect in the space of a single battle. She thought about the alliance between their species and how it might work out better than anyone had expected. "Maybe they do," she agreed. "But next time someone wants to arrange a wedding, they should probably mention it in the briefing." Despite everything that had happened, Prince Theron actually smiled at that. Part 5. A New Alliance. 3 hours later, the wedding hall looked completely different. Kate had spent those hours working alongside Captain Veltar and his security team, turning the elegant palace into a fortress. Motion sensors were hidden, Behind crystal decorations, armed guards stood at every entrance, and escape routes had been clearly marked for all the guests. Kate felt more comfortable now that proper security was in place. She had learned long ago that the best way to prevent attacks was to be ready for them. The Altarians had been impressed by her thoroughness, watching as she methodically checked every corner and weak point in their supposedly safe palace. Now she stood at the altar again, still wearing her battle-scarred combat armor. The ceramic plates were dusty and scratched from the firefight, and one shoulder guard had a fresh dent from where an enemy plasma bolt had glanced off. But someone had placed a delicate Altarian marriage crown on top of her tactical helmet. The crown was made of what looked like woven starlight, thin strands of metal that glowed with soft silver light. It was the most beautiful thing Kate had ever seen, and it looked completely ridiculous sitting on her military helmet. The contrast between the elegant alien artwork and her practical human war gear should have been embarrassing. Instead, Kate found that she liked it. The crown represented everything these people valued: beauty, tradition, and peace. Her armor represented everything humans brought to the table: strength, protection, and the willingness to fight for what mattered. Together, they made a statement about what this alliance could become. The wedding guests had returned to their seats, but they were different now. Before the attack, they had whispered about Kate with disgust and embarrassment. Now they looked at her with curiosity and respect. Some of the younger Altarians were actually staring at her with something that looked like admiration. The officiant was an ancient Altarian, with skin so translucent Kate could see the light flowing through his veins. His voice was old and musical as he spoke the ritual words that had been used for thousands of years. "Do you, Kate Rodriguez of Earth, accept this bond between our peoples?" he asked in the ancient ritual tongue. His words were translated by Kate's helmet display, appearing as text across her vision. Kate looked out at the assembled nobles who were no longer horrified by her presence. She thought about the memorial patches on her shoulder and the comrades who had died protecting others. She thought about the Kethmori assassins who had tried to destroy this alliance through violence. She thought about all the future threats that would come for these peaceful people. "I do," Kate said clearly. "I promise to defend this alliance with everything I have." Her words carried through the hall with the authority of someone who had proven they meant what they said. These aliens had seen her in action now. They knew that when Kate Rodriguez made a promise about protection, it was backed up by skill, training, and an absolute refusal to give up. Prince Theron stepped forward and took her armored gauntlet in his pale, delicate hands. The contrast was striking. His fingers looked like they were made of crystal and moonlight, now, while her gloves were scarred metal and ceramic, designed to survive explosions. "And I accept you as you are," he said in careful English, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Warrior, protector, and bridge between our worlds." Kate felt something she had not expected, a sense of belonging. These people understood her now. They had seen what she could do when their lives were in danger, and instead of being afraid, they were grateful. She was not just some rough soldier who did not understand their refined culture. She was their guardian. Ambassador Hayes watched from the front row with a look of amazement on his face. Kate could see him finally understanding why Command had selected a combat veteran instead of some smooth-talking diplomat. Diplomacy was about making deals and compromising. But some things were too important to compromise on. Kate Rodriguez had not just represented humanity's military excellence during the ceremony. She had shown these aliens everything that made humans valuable as allies and dangerous as enemies. Her willingness to fight, her skill in battle, her absolute commitment to protecting innocent people. These were the qualities that would make this alliance strong. The ceremony concluded with traditional Altarian music that sounded like crystal bells, ringing in harmony. As the last notes faded, Kate's communication system crackled to life with an incoming message from Earth. "How did the parade duty go, Rodriguez?" Colonel Williams asked. Kate could hear the amusement in his voice, and she realized he had known all along what this mission really was. Kate looked around at the Altarian nobles, who were now approaching to thank their unexpected guardian. Some wanted to touch her armor, others wanted to ask questions about human military tactics. All of them looked at her with respect and genuine appreciation. "Just another day representing Earth's finest, sir," Kate replied with a grim smile. "Though next time, Maybe mention it's a wedding in the briefing. She heard Colonel Williams laugh through the communication link. Would you have done anything differently if you had known? Kate considered the question seriously. Would she have worn dress blues instead of combat armor? Would she have brought flowers instead of weapons? Would she have tried to be more diplomatic and less direct? No, sir, she said finally. I would have done exactly the same thing. And she meant it. Alliance between humanity and Alteria would last for generations, but it would not be built on polite diplomatic language or carefully worded treaties. It would be built on something much stronger, the foundation of respect earned through action, trust proven under fire, and the knowledge that humans would fight to protect their friends. Kate Rodriguez had worn her battle armor to her own wedding, and it had turned out to be exactly the right choice. The alliance was going to work just fine. The end.